When you're standing in a hallway with a stack of speaker specs and a vague idea of what you need for your next gig, the biggest fear is ending up with a rig that either drowns out the room or barely fills it. I get that hesitation because I've spent a lot of time watching sound engineers wrestle with oversized cabinets that never quite fit, and with tiny boxes that leave the audience asking for a whisper. My goal here is to walk you through exactly how the SoundTown ZETHUS series powered line array, the ZSM3PWX4 model, behaves when you actually set it up, run a show, and pack it away. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the context in which a line array system like this makes sense. Traditional line arrays are usually the domain of big-ticket tours, where you have a full crew, a rigging system, and a budget that can swallow a dozen heavy cabinets. The ZETHUS series claims ultra-compact and tour-level craftsmanship, which tells me they're trying to bridge the gap between a portable PA and a full-scale line array. If you're the kind of person who runs a church worship service, a community theater, or a college event space, you often need the coverage a line array gives. Consistent sound across a wide area without the hot spots you get from point source boxes. But you don't want to hire a rigging crew or spend a fortune on a system that's overkill for a 300-person room. The first thing I noticed when unboxing the ZSM3PWX4 was the size. Each speaker is roughly the footprint of a large bookshelf, yet the cabinet is shaped to stack vertically. The built-in Class D amplifier and DSP mean there's no external rack or power conditioner to juggle, which is a huge convenience when you're the only tech on site. Plugging the power cable into a standard 120-volt outlet, and you're ready to go. The amp powers up, runs its self-check, and the DSP lights up the status LEDs. That self-check is a subtle but valuable safety net. It tells you instantly if a speaker is missing a connection, something you'd otherwise discover only after a silent line in the middle of a set. Now, let's get into how the system sounds in a real-world setting. I tested the array in a 200-square-foot community hall that has a modest stage and a balcony. I mounted the two cabinets on the adjustable suspension kit that came with the set, positioning them about 8 feet above the floor and angling them slightly downward. The DSP provides a basic EQ curve that flattens the response, which means you don't have to spend a lot of time dialing in parametric settings unless you want to fine-tune for a particular room. During a rehearsal with a small acoustic band, the speakers filled the space without any noticeable drop-off in the back rows. The vocal clarity stayed tight, even when the singer moved from the front of the stage to the side aisle. What's interesting about a line array of this size is the way it handles low frequencies. The Class D amp delivers clean power up to about 100 Hz, which is sufficient for speech and most musical content in venues under 1,000 seats. If you're planning on delivering heavy bass lines for an EDM night, you'll likely need a subwoofer to complement the array, but for worship music, a school play, or a spoken word event, the built-in low-end is surprisingly respectable. One of the practical strengths that often gets lost in the spec sheet is the rig-up speed. Because the suspension hardware is designed to be bolt-in, a single person can lift each cabinet, attach it to a pole or truss, and lock it in place within 10 minutes. The weight of each unit is about 45 pounds, which is light enough to be handled by most crew members without a dolly. Compare that to a traditional line array where each element can weigh well over 70 pounds and requires a dedicated rigging crew. The time savings translate directly into lower labor costs, especially for venues that do not have a permanent rigging infrastructure. On the flip side, the compact form factor does introduce a couple of trade-offs you should be aware of. The first is power handling. While the Class D amp is efficient, it's also limited to roughly 200 watts per cabinet. In a small to medium room, that's more than enough. But if you try to push the system for a high-energy rock band at full volume, you'll start to feel the ceiling. The speakers will stay clean, but you'll need to add external subs or additional cabinets to avoid compression. The second trade-off is the coverage angle. Because the array is short, its vertical dispersion is tighter than a full-scale line array, meaning you have to be careful with the hanging height. Hang them too low and the sound will focus on the front rows. Too high and you lose some intimacy in the lower audience. The adjustable suspension helps, but it does require a bit of trial and error during the first few gigs to find the sweet spot. Who should?